I'm Lynne Karran.
And I'm Karen Harper Royal.
We're parents with Pyramid Community Parent Resource Center, providing information and support to parents of children with special needs in New Orleans. At Pyramid Community Parent Resource Center, we provide one-to-one assistance, workshops on special education law, positive behavior support, and advocacy skills. You can reach us on the web at www.pyramidparentcenter.org. Follow us on Facebook at Pyramid Parent Center and on Twitter at Pyramid CPRC, or call our helpline at 504-218-8922. And you can listen to a replay of this show and previous shows at www.pyramidparenttalk.com. Today we will complete our discussion on the recent landmark settlement in the Southern Poverty Law Center lawsuit against the Louisiana Department of Education, Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, and the Orleans Parish School Board. We will discuss the child fine and related services portions of the settlement. So what is child fine? The IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, includes that child fine mandate that the child fine requires all school districts to identify, locate, and evaluate all children with disabilities regardless of the severity of their disabilities. And the obligation to identify all children who may need special education services exists even if schools is not providing special education services to the child. And it also requires that all states to develop and implement a practical method of determining which children with disabilities are receiving special education and related services and which children are not. And children birth through 21 are covered by child fine. And also it applies to all children who reside in the state, including children who attend private schools and public schools, highly mobile children, migrant children, homeless children, and children who are wards of the state. So if you want to join the discussion, please call us at 504-260-9265. So Karen, why don't you talk to us about what the settlement covers regarding child fine?
Absolutely, Lynn. So as you mentioned, child fine was one of the major points that was it was alleged that the Louisiana Department of Education, through its charters and direct-run schools, when they had direct-run schools, were not properly addressing that part of the federal law, where they had to actively go out and find children with disabilities. And with each Recovery School District Type 5 charter and State Department of Education Type 2, or BESSIE charter, each of those are known as their own local education agency, LEA for short. And LEAs have that responsibility, as you just mentioned, to find these children. So when a charter school is in a building, are they only supposed to be looking inside their building for children with disabilities? If that is the case, how will they find those children who are not in school, those children who are homeless, or those children who are wards of state? It was very confusing for schools to even try to comply with the law in the kind of landscape of public education that we have here in New Orleans.
Because how would they, before schools turned to charter, how would they do
So
this?
Before we had this vast number of charter schools, it was the responsibility of the Orleans Parish School Board. But with the Orleans Parish School Board only having 6 schools and the state having the vast majority of the schools, whose responsibility is it? Well, when you have a situation like that, it ends up being nobody taking responsibility, or the responsibility was not properly done. And frankly, children weren't getting found. And also, the other side of this, what it looks like to parents, is when you have a child with a disability, you need to know where do you go for help.
Right.
And I know for me, years and years and years ago, I guess there was enough advertisement. I just knew I had to go to the Orleans Parish School Board. But when parents are told today, well, the school board only have 6 schools. Do I go to the school board? Do I go to the RSD? It's very confusing for parents.
Because before, most parents would know, or somebody would say, you just need to go to the school board to do this.
Right. And that's the way it was. But now, even another reason why this is necessary to address this in this consent decree is that because we have this idea that parents have choice. So parents may start off in school A, which may be an Orleans Parish School Board school. And they don't like the way things are going there. We were told you could let your feet do the walking.
Right.
And so parents go over to school B, which may be a RSD charter school. And because of the way the state's data system is set up, the child may have started the evaluation at school A, but school B would have no knowledge of that through the school's data system until school A releases jurisdiction over that child. The school B was not able to see where they were in the evaluation system and the process. And so children were having to start the process of evaluation all over again, which actually violates timelines that are a part of the federal law. The federal law says that an LEA has 60 operational days to complete an evaluation. But when children are jumping across different local education agencies, it's very difficult to have anybody comply with the law. So that is why it was necessary for this to be a part of the lawsuit that was filed by the Southern Poverty Law Center against the Louisiana Department of Education and the Bessie Board, and then the Orleans Parish School Board joined into the suit voluntarily. We've been talking about this for a few weeks now. We've encouraged people to go online and download the settlement agreement or the consent decree. And so when you're looking at this consent decree, you will see that they talk about the defendant intervener. Right. I want people to know that the defendant intervener simply means the Orleans Parish School Board, or OPSB as we call it. And then the state defendants, that would be John White in his capacity as superintendent of the Louisiana Department of Education and the Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. So those are the state defendants. And so now that we have this consent decree that clearly spells out some things that will be done differently, let's take a look at what's going to be done differently. Well, the Louisiana Department of Education, and this pertains to Type 2 and Type 5 charters, Bessie charters, RSD charters, and the Orleans Parish School Board, shall together develop a schedule identifying the assignment of child fine responsibilities, meaning it's going to be clearly written out who's responsible for what. And that's going to be made public, who is responsible for what. So this schedule or plan, if you will, it's in addition to allocating the responsibility for identifying, locating, and evaluating individuals ages 3 through 21. And I just want to make a point. People don't realize, even after age 18, if you have not completed high school with a diploma, you are still eligible for special education services. So that's ages 3 through 21 who may be suspected of having a disability, including those who are not currently enrolled in school, who are enrolled in a non-public school. So if they are in a private school, there's still a responsibility to locate them and evaluate them.
And I had a parent ask me that at the expo. So we definitely need to get in touch with that parent to say, hey, your child can be evaluated. It's the same as it was before.
Also, and sadly, we have too many children who are detained in juvenile detention centers, but they're also supposed to look at those children who are in juvenile detention centers or an adult correctional facility, or housed in a private hospital, an institution, or other healthcare facility. So they have to basically leave no stone unturned to go find these individuals who may be individuals with disabilities who fall within that age range of ages 3 through 21.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how they're going to go about accomplishing this.
And I just want to repeat the phone number. If you have some questions, you think you might fall into any of these categories, please give us a call, 504-260-9265, because we want to make sure that people understand that this consent decree is something that's going to make things better for their children with disabilities or who may have a disability. And you need to know what's in it and how it applies to you in your life. So please, if you have some questions, give us a call at 504-260-9265. So the next thing is that this schedule or plan shall include procedures for ensuring that an evaluation initiated at one LEA is completed within those timelines, that's 60 days, even when the child moves to a new LEA.
I guess the thing that's going to be at play with that one is who completes it. Is it the one that starts? I guess they'll hash all of that out.
I guess they're also going to have to hash out who pays for it.
Right, right.
The consent decree does not look at that, but I'm sure that's something, as they are working out this plan, they can work out how it's going to be paid for, who's going to pay for what portions of it, and that kind of thing. Within 30 days of the independent monitor coming on board, the state is supposed to submit that schedule or that plan to the independent monitor for review and approval. So it's not just that they get together and make up a plan. It has to be looked at by an outside entity, which is so important because we want to make sure it does what it needs to do.
Right.
The independent monitor will provide comments on the schedule to the parties within 21 days, and the parties may provide comments on the independent monitor's comments within 7 days. The independent monitor will consider the parties' comments and mediate any disputes and approve documents with any changes within 15 days. So not only must they show it to the independent monitor, they have to, the independent monitor is going to approve this document. And they're giving, all sides a chance to comment on it, which is good. And so what's not clear is how public will this be? And we can definitely ask questions of the state or the Southern Poverty Law Center moving forward about, what access parents and advocates will have to these proceedings as they go on, especially when it comes to commenting and that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. So another thing that needs to happen, that's a provision of the settlement, was the state defendants shall require the charter application and renewal process for the Type 2 and Type 5 charter schools in New Orleans to require each organization seeking a charter or a renewal of a charter to provide a description of the charter school staff and or outside contractors who provide the pupil appraisal services, including a description of qualified pupil appraisal personnel designated to serve on each organization's school building level committee. And the school building level committee is the group of people that's going to look at that child. And
in some schools it's called the SAT team. Or there may be a whole different
could it be something? It might be other. They may have given it other names.
So you just need to know that there is a team of people at your school that's going to be a part of this.
And so this information needs to be given to is it the independent monitor that information is being given to? Who's doing the services?
Right. They're going to give that information to the independent monitor because remember, the independent monitor is going to be reporting back to the judge on how all of this is going.
Okay.
So they will give that information to the independent monitor to make sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to go.
Okay. So the settlement also states that the state defendants shall annually calculate the rate at which each LEA in New Orleans identifies new students as eligible for services under the under IDEA. And it's called the annual new identification rate. So, Karen, tell us more about that.
Right. So, using this rate, the state defendants or the Louisiana Department of Education shall annually select certain LEAs for targeted monitoring. As a part of targeted monitoring, the state is going to conduct file reviews of a random sampling, basically a representative sampling of students who fall into certain categories. Those categories are students who have Section 504 plans, who are in the RTI process, which I'm so glad they're doing that, because we hear parents talk about their kids being in RTI forever and ever and
RTI,
ever.
the response to intervention process.
That's
and
right.
There's two sides, the academic and the behavioral.
Absolutely. They're looking at students who are under consideration by the school building level committee or the SAT team, students who have failed 2 or more academic subjects in the prior school year. And that's so important because we may not know that a child have a problem, just think that they're not trying hard enough and they're just failing and failing and failing. So I'm glad they're going to be looking at that. Or who are subject to more than 10 days of disciplinary removals during the school year. Now, this is where we really need parents to be paying attention. A disciplinary removal is not just a documented suspension. A disciplinary removal can also be when you receive that phone call asking you to take your child home, or when your child is sent to the blue room or the green room or the purple room, whatever your school is calling it, or when your child is sent to the timeout room. Anytime they are removed from the regular academic setting, that's a disciplinary removal, and it really can't happen for more than 10 days without some other things being done. So they're going to be looking at children who have had those more than 10 days of disciplinary removals. The local education agency will select these student files for review, and they're going to do staff interviews. School site visits are going to be conducted with this process, and if the state defendant's targeted monitoring results in the identification of noncompliance, the Louisiana Department of Education shall require each of those charter schools, each LEA, with validated noncompliance, to get involved with what's called a corrective action plan. So they're going to have to take, sufficient actions to fix the noncompliance, which is good because, we keep finding problems over and over and over again in some of these schools, and it doesn't seem that they're taking steps to correct the problem systemically.
So we've been talking years about there's no accountability. So this is the part that's going to hopefully result in the accountability.
Yeah, I believe it will. So they're gonna this new annual identification rate for each LEA is going to be calculated by dividing the number of students within each LEA for the initial eligibility under IDEA between July 1st and June 30th by the total number of students enrolled in the LEA on October 1st. Then the targeted monitoring activities described that we talked about, they cannot supplant what they already have to do. There is a certain amount of monitoring that has to be done by the state anyway. It does not replace that. This is on top of that. And so, it's just a good thing that this is going to be going on. And we want to definitely get to related services, so I'm going to kind of stop. But, still encourage people to download this consent decree from the Louisiana Believes website. When you go there, you'll see, I think it's Hot Topics. It's right near the bottom. It says Settlement Agreement. And click on that. And you'll be able to get a copy of this settlement agreement. But I know, Lynn, we wanted to talk a little bit about the related services. And, time flies so fast on this show.
Yes, it does.
So I think I better cut it short with the child fine section.
Okay. Well, with the related services, the state defendants shall require the charter application and renewal processes for the Type 2 and Type 5 charter schools in New Orleans. It requires each organization seeking the either issuance or renewal of a charter to provide a description of the organization's plan for offering a full array of related services to students with qualifying disabilities who are or may come to be enrolled at the charter school, including but without limitation to the following categories of related services. So related services can be physical therapy, and these are the ones that you see most often, but there are others. So it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling services, orientation and mobility services, speech and language pathology, audiology services, school health and nurse services, special transportation, and adaptive physical education. And the charter school staff and our outside contractors who will provide such services.
So again, the state is going to be conducting an evaluation of what's going on at these schools. They're going to every year they're going to calculate the rate at which each LEA, each local education agency in New Orleans, provides those related services to eligible students for those services in accordance with the federal law. And then using that rate, the state is going to annually select certain LEAs, and they're going to go in and do targeted monitoring. And as a part of that targeted monitoring, the state is going to look at the files. They're going to take a random selection of those files of students who have disabilities. And in looking at that, they're going to do staff interviews. They're going to do site visits. And they're going to see if these schools are actually compliant with providing those related services.
So I'm assuming that this was found in the complaint that parents were saying that they weren't getting these services at schools.
We actually know some parents who knew that it was written into the child's IEP that they would get, let's say, speech therapy. But the school did not have a contract with anybody to provide those speech therapy services. And or the child switched to a new school, and the new school hadn't geared up yet for those speech therapy services or whatever type of therapy because they didn't have that child before.
Right, so they figured that since they didn't have any children that needed speech therapy at the time, they didn't even have provisions for that kind of service.
And so children just had to kind of wait for the schools to get it together. And so, inside of an IEP, your services are supposed to begin immediately, basically. And so if you're getting them...
If they're not getting them, then they're being denied
FAPE, which is a free and appropriate public education. And so if the state finds that there's been some non-compliance, again, they're going to have the school enter into a corrective action plan so that they can make sure that this non-compliant does not reoccur, which is, the main thing. It's been so frustrating over these last 9 years to have to deal with the same problem at some of the same schools over and over and over again.
And so, we're going to be very hopeful with these things in place that schools now know that they can't say, oh, we just don't provide those services, that they have to provide them. And these things should be in place at all schools.
They absolutely should. And we talked about, some of the things we normally deal with, occupational therapy, speech therapy. But there's also things like counseling services. We have a lot of children and a lot of schools that have children with behavior issues. And the schools don't have social workers like they used to. They don't have anybody on staff who could do that counseling. And I just want to bring up something that I just found out is going on. There are some schools, I'll just say specifically, the Renew Charter School has a day treatment program for children who have extreme behaviors. While I appreciate that finally that type of program is in existence in New Orleans, however, I have already seen where a school has not provided things like counseling, and they're trying to push parents, couple of parents, to put their children into this day treatment program. And frustratingly, the Renew organization kind of advertised this program to like the whole city's worth of schools. Like, look, if you have children who are having these kinds of problems, we have a place for them. And so, I am afraid that this will lead to resegregation. So parents need to make sure their children are getting the related services of counseling, social work services, social skills development, and all these things before they agree to putting their child in a more intensive place.
And a more segregated place.
More segregated place and in this in this more segregated place, it is written clearly that children will not get a full array of academic supports or academics, period.
And we both know that best practices say if you do the things that, if you get these services that you're supposed to get, then you won't have to make that kind of decision to put your child in a day.
And so parents need to understand that's basically like a mental health hospital.
Right.
And so related services are so important for maintaining your child's placement. Placement in a regular school setting. Those services are supposed to help your child be able to make it in a regular school setting. So it is not right when the school doesn't provide those services and then want to railroad your child into a segregated setting. So this is why we want parents to be clear and understand
a very important distinction.
Absolutely. A very important distinction. So, this is the last part of the settlement that we're talking about. And we wanted to take our time and just go through this to make sure people understood how important this settlement is and how groundbreaking it is, because New Orleans public school system doesn't look like anybody else's public school system.
Right.
And some things are going to have to be done differently. And for too long, the perceived successes of this district have been on the backs of children with disabilities, identified and unidentified. And so I'm looking forward to this going into place, and so that these children are no longer falling through the cracks.
And the families need to bring it to our attention. So the documentation is important. The bringing this to the independent monitor is important. And
you're right, Lynn. Families do need to bring it to our attention. So while this may be our last time, we've hit all areas of this consent decree. Parents can absolutely give us a call on the Pyramid Helpline, or if they have more questions specific to this, and of course in general.
And once again, if you want to read the settlement for yourself, it's at www.louisianabelieves.com. Go to the hot topics and then click on the settlement notice, and you'll see the statement about the settlement. And our next show is Tuesday, March 10th. Also, if you have any concerns regarding your child with a disability, please contact us at our helpline at 504-218-8922. And remember to follow us on Twitter at PyramidCPRC and like us on Facebook at Pyramid Community Parent Resource Center. And remember, you are never alone.